And we're live. Welcome back to the Lore and Valor podcast. I'm your host, Justin Watson, and joining me is Mr. Sam Platiski of the Bayonne Platiskis, independent filmmaker extraordinaire. And we are here to talk to you about Moon Knight Episode 2. As per last time, we will be spoiling the episode. And spoilers for this episode, I think we're both in agreement that this one was not as strong as the opening. Yeah. So... briefly, so let me see. I think the worst sin of the episode, Sam, and I don't know if you feel the same way, is I'm actually having a hard time remembering what happened because I got bored at a certain point.
Okay.
That's episode. Always a sin, you know. There's some stuff that sticks out of me, but I'm having a hard time putting together the narrative in my head as to where it started to where it ended. I do remember. He comes in, he's talking to the security guard, and it looks like he's just running around the museum acting crazy.
Yeah.
Which, fine, but I think that's maybe, like, if I were to summarize this episode, I feel like I left it with a feeling of, for the most part, fine. You know, it's not like anything was flagrantly incompetent, but it also didn't grab me.
I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. It feels like, and part of it is, I know part of it is because the knowledge that it's only 6 episodes, right? So you got 6 episodes to get a whole story across, and it kind of feels like it was kind of like dragging its feet. Like, I don't mind last episode, great, good introduction, but it feels like we're still in the introduction, and we only have now 4 episodes left. So I think that bothered me a little bit, and I don't know. I like the character and the idea of Stephen Grant, you know, being so different from Mark. I think that's good. I think that's an improvement on the comics. I'm a little tired of him, and maybe that's just because he has so much more screen time than Mark does. But it's
so far, yeah.
I mean, the worst part of the episode for me was when he's in the Mr. Knight get-up, the suit, and he's like, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, and like I'm Stephen with a V. I was like, that's the worst line I've heard. In this,
oh my god!
Maybe the entire Disney Plus series is.
And there's a few stinkers in those shows, but this God, there's everything about that sequence, because you're right. It was silly. It's like they were going for almost clean Deadpool humor, but it didn't land at all.
And it went on too long.
It went on too long. And then you have. I was going to save this for a little bit, so that I got to give them partial credit, because they did foreshadow the fact that the Anubis hounds that he fights are invisible to other people by having them not show up in the security camera footage. So, okay, like, you did foreshadow that, got it. But it still feels like they're the victim of budget cuts.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
it's like,
for real.
Well, yeah, like that just felt cheap to me.
Yeah, definitely. The way they handled it, for sure. I mean, like, you go on, and I get it. It's cool. It's a cool idea that nobody else can see them except for him because he's got superpowers, supernatural. It's fine. But then they went on for way too long with, like, the miming the fight. And I'm like, you got to, if you're doing this, you got to cut back and forth. You got to, you know, you can show that the rest of the world can't see them, but you have to show us who knows that he can see them. You have to show them fighting, you know? And you're right. It does feel cheap.
Yeah, and furthermore, when you can see them, and this bothered me less in the bathroom fight at the end of the first episode, this isn't the sort of thing I usually notice, so you can tell I'm annoyed when I start to notice, because I'm not a connoisseur of CGI, honestly. But even when you can see the Anubis hounds, they're not a super well-constructed, generated creature. So people complain, and I think with some validity, about the very finale of Wanda, when Wanda and Agatha are throwing CGI blobs of color at each other. But at least that looks like something you'd see in an MCU movie. Like, I feel like while it wasn't terribly creative, and there's a lot else they could have done that might have been cooler for a magical duel between two powerful witches, at least it was on par. It didn't feel off-brand for the MCU. This definitely felt like ABC Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. level budget.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
yeah, definitely.
When you can see
S.H.I.E.L.D. Even like even the Netflix series, which were, you know, lower budget, but you never got, and like that's the problem with having like a lot of CG on these shows. If you can't afford it, maybe come up with a different idea. You know, if you don't think you can nail it, maybe do something a little different.
Yeah, I know fight choreography doesn't happen by magic, but you can have him fight cultists.
Sure,
you know, that's fine.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah,
yeah. I don't know. That was probably my biggest problem with the episode. Because again, the character work, I'm liking the character work. You know, I like.
Except for I think you hit it on when you said just Steven lingered too long. You know, it's clearly time for Mark.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yes, the befuddled English shopkeep is fun and a good contrast to the hardened mercenary, but and especially when this is something that not just Moon Knight, but a lot of shows do, and it always drives me up the wall, is when you clearly the clear point where anyone can see, like, okay, the only choice that makes any sense is A. And if Steven doesn't let Mark take over, he's gonna die. You know, and this woman who he's enchanted with, even though, and we'll get to Layla in a second here, but Layla is going to die if he doesn't let Mark take over, and he still won't let Mark take over. Yeah. I hate that stuff. Like, I absolutely hate that.
I agree. Because they waited too long for that moment. And while we're on like that subject, it's kind of weird that all of a sudden now he needs permission to take over the body. Because last episode, it was just back and forth. And maybe there's a reason for it that it's over my head, or they're going to explain it. But it's like he was just taking over when he needed him to. Now it's like he needs him to give him permission, and he's not going to give it back to Steven, like, right now. It's like, what are the rules of this, you know, this associative, you know, thing?
Yeah, and I mean, pardon me. Excuse me. Did Mark only get to take control if Steven fell unconscious? No, because we saw him black out during all the action scenes.
Yeah.
In the first episode, so that's not the case.
Yeah, and unless the idea was that he kept passing out from fear, but that's not what it looked like at all. So I don't even think they can go with that.
I guess they could make the argument, oh, he fainted, you just didn't realize it.
He faints a lot. You know?
I mean, Steven seems like the kind of guy who would faint. Like, let's be real here.
It's true.
But still, that's not the fact that I always say, like, it's a legitimate flaw in writing if we're sitting here in good faith, not just trying to be bitchy about it, but in good faith looking at the episode, and we have to try to come up with reasons why it might be okay, then I think that's an oversight on their part. So Steven lingered too long. He made stupid and like anti-survival choices in the show, and it always feels like they're just drawing it out so it can happen at the last possible moment. Yeah, which is fine, but it was kind of like
fine last episode when they wait for the last moment. But if you keep doing it every episode, that's not,
it's false tension.
Yeah,
like all action adventure. I mean, most of storytelling really is about tension. And tension and release. However, if we know there's no consequences and you're just dragging us around until he finally lets Mark take over, it's false tension. I don't feel the emotion you're trying to evoke from me as the viewer. And I end up sitting there, Michelle and I were watching it last night, just sitting there kind of like this. It's just not right. You're not hitting your beats, and you're not doing anything intriguing with this story that is inherently intriguing. Like this should be a short putt, for you. This character's crazy complex and has all kinds of mystery, and you're just taking your sweet ass time
that you don't have that much of. Seemingly by choice. Maybe the budget's the reason for the 6 episodes, but I mean, you set yourself 6 episodes. You got to work in that 6 episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no room for filler when you have 6 episodes.
One would think. I mean, they did the same thing in Loki, right? They had that episode that was just a complete waste.
Yes.
The whole time was a complete
that episode,
waste.
I think, you bring that up. I think it's a similar feeling that I had afterwards. I was like, all right. I don't hate it, but my enjoyment of the series as a whole is kind of like, it's not where it was.
Yeah, you started out with a positive, and you kind of went into the hole a little bit with this episode. You got to do better, Disney Plus, on the next episode.
And I got to, while we're talking about Steven, I got to tell you, Oscar Isaac's a great actor. I like him in this. I love the idea that he's so completely different from Mark again. But like when he's there so much of the episode, and it's all about this, bruv, and this, bruv, and it is it, bruv. It's all the things that you think of when you think of like fake British accents. It's a really sounds like a real British accent. People talk like that, but he repeats the same fucking words over and over again.
Because those are the words he knows how to do in the accent.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if you're trying to key an accent in your head. If you have like a word that gets you there, you say that in your head, and then you act. You don't keep saying the same words. And I'm like, it's like he's a good actor, but come on, I need more than that.
I have heard, and I feel like this might just be propaganda to cover this. I've heard reports that Oscar Isaac says his accent is intentionally wrong because Mark doesn't know how to do an English accent. So when he created a disassociative personality, it was a shoddy imitation of an Englishman from London. So
right.
Sure, we'll go with that.
I mean, if that's the reason, that's fine. That's a fine reason. But like, show me that. Give me that. Like, I want to see these things. And that's another thing that I had a problem with. They tell you instead of show you, so far at least, and that's bad. Yes. That's bad storytelling with any kind of visual media. In a book, fine, whatever. But in visual media, you got to show these things. You can't just say it's like, oh, I was a mercenary and like Khonshu brought me back to life. I don't care. I want to see it. Show me that.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm your wife. And we're getting divorced, and it's like, I don't care though. Like it's like, I get you're going for the shock value of, oh, he's married. It's like, yeah, but I don't know this character at all. Yeah. She has no emotional impact for me. It doesn't matter to me that she's divorcing him, and she's not bad. There's nothing terrible about the character so far, but she's also not so instantly magnetic that I'm like, oh yeah, she's important.
There's I guess we're on her. But there's nothing to her beyond she's Mark's wife so far, or soon to be ex-wife. There's nothing more to the character yet. It's just that's it. That's her character's wife,
and she seems to be a competent action adventure type. So far, what we can see.
But how? Like, who is this person? They didn't give any hint at that. And
and you said earlier about in the written format. Maybe it being less of a stricture to show, don't tell. There are times you do tell in a novel, but it's, it is very much a thoughtful thing. You only tell when it's something you can legitimately glaze over. You can't tell in a book. And I know it's all written words, so you'd think everything's a tell. But you're supposed to be in a character, writing with a character for things that are important. You're supposed to, just like in a show, we're supposed to have created enough empathy between us and our main character on screen to where we feel what they're feeling. And that's the power of fiction. That's why we do it on a base psychological level. I mean, there are other things, people like different trappings of genre. People might find some fiction is still educational, even though it's fiction. But really what gets to us is that vicarious emotional experience of falling in love for romance, or being a superhero in Moon Knight, or going to war and Saving Private Ryan. Like, all these different stories are there to appeal to us. And when you fail to create the bond, you might still keep most people happy with spectacle, but you stay at a shallow surface level of storytelling. And that's where the show is right now with this episode. They got a little bit past that with the first episode. They had some intrigue, and Steven's vulnerability was good and let you into his head and his heart a little bit. But now it's just like things are just happening on screen. Yeah. Some of them are kind of cool. Some of them are really poorly choreographed. Some of them look like they were generated on a 2000s IBM, the same one they used for like Ben Affleck Daredevil or something. I don't know. That's twice I've referenced Ben Affleck Daredevil in this stream, so in this podcast.
And
so
it won't be the last. Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, like there are things I liked about the episode. I still like Oscar Isaacs. I liked getting a little bit more backstory about Harrow and how he was Khonshu's avatar before Mark. I'm interested in that idea. That's something that's not in the comics, so I'm interested in finding out more about that.
Yeah.
But I like the Mr. Knight's costume is really cool. If it
Yeah.
wasn't so silly, and that's the thing about like a lot of people have like those critiques about the MCU. They're like, oh, it's just too silly and funny and haha. It's like, but when the jokes work, it's good. It's good
Yeah.
to have humor in it. But when they don't land and it's just silly for like I want to be able to see this character in that universe. And like right now, I don't know how much I can see that character with the Avengers or with Doctor Strange
Yeah.
and Blade and all that.
Yeah. I mean, I think Deadpool would fit in better at this point.
Yeah, which isn't good. I don't think.
No,
not for me.
It's not.
Not for me.
And you know, people again, pardon me. Again, sorry folks, it's pollen season here in Houston, so I'm basically under constant chemical attack. So the thing that the two movies I've heard that complaint the most about are Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Thor Ragnarok. But you're right, the humor in those works for the most part. Now, as a matter of taste, sometimes you could say they might cut the heartfelt short with a gag a little too quickly. And that's a perfectly valid opinion. You know, I don't think you're wrong for feeling that way. But as compared to this, it wasn't even funny.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I didn't laugh when they were trying to go for the laugh, that I wasn't getting the action sequence and the tension that the story was telling me I should feel, but I wasn't.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. It's just, they didn't land. It just made me cringe, a lot of that humor. It's like,
so annoying. The only reveal that wasn't completely predictable, in my opinion, was that Arthur used to be Khonshu's avatar. And okay, but again, like you just told us you were Khonshu's avatar, which I get it. You can't do a flashback for every bit of exposition. That's fine. But at this point, and they could rectify this in future episodes, but at this point, Ethan Hawke is supporting an Egyptian god that wants to kill most of the people on the planet before they've done anything wrong. He wants to go all Minority Report on everyone. That's more batshit than Thanos by a mile. And we've seen nothing about him to make us understand why he would be motivated to do that. You know, when you have characters with extreme motivations willing to do extreme things, if you want us to think they're interesting, I'm not even talking about sympathizing with them at this point, just think they're interesting.
Yeah.
We need to know where that motivation comes from. And it needs to be something that we can, at least in the back of our mind, think, well, maybe I would react like that, you know, on some level.
Just show that they're three-dimensional, you know?
Yeah.
Something more than what we've been getting so far with this one.
Yeah.
You know?
And I get it's 2 episodes in, but still.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I feel like there's a part of me that feels like, I'm just being, you know, all that stuff to come. But there's not that much time, you know? There's not too much time for all that stuff. And you can't take it for granted, you know, that, you know, everybody's going to watch every week, you know, week in and week out to do it. I'm going to, because I'm a fan, but like, if like anybody else was like, you know, I'm just like, it's not for me. I'm not going to watch this anymore.
Yeah. You know? No, I mean, honestly, like if Marvel hadn't earned a ton of goodwill with me, this might be the point at which I'm like, I got better stuff I could do with Wednesday night.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I watched all of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So.
You're far more dedicated than I was.
Yeah, I'm pretty forgiving, and that was rough. At times, that show was pretty rough. But
I heard it had some peaks to go with the valleys, but
it never matched up. Did you ever watch it at all, or no?
I think I watched all of season. I did watch all of season. No, I didn't watch all of season 1. I skipped a lot of season 1, and I tried season 2 because people said it got better, and it got to the point where it wasn't bad. But I was just so busy that it was not worth the expenditure of time anymore. And I watched all of Agent Carter. I mean, keep that in mind. Of course, again, Peggy Carter is one of my favorite characters in the entire MCU. So that's really why I watched that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it got to the point where I was like, well, this isn't bad. But I don't have an hour a week for it. So on to other things.
Yeah. You got to make your choices with your time, and that's something they got to like hold you. And like if it was like if I wasn't as big a fan, I wouldn't just quit after like one mediocre episode. I'd give it another shot,
Yeah.
But if like next week it doesn't like start to shape up, I'm still gonna watch it through. But a less rabid fan might not do that.
Yeah. Well, and like I come down pretty negative on Falcon and Winter Soldier. I still watch the whole thing. And I went to the next Disney Plus series. There is a point, if the MCU has too many strikes in the future, because they went a long time with nothing there were things that weren't great, but there was nothing that really pissed me off.
Yeah.
I think maybe Falcon and Winter Soldier is the first thing where the writing actually pissed me off. And this hasn't pissed me off yet. It just disappointed me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I hope they get their QA/QC back in line and you start getting the same uniform high level. Because I feel like they haven't. I mean, Shang-Chi was good. I liked it. No Way Home was great. I love No Way Home. I didn't like the Eternals. WandaVision was great in my opinion. I didn't like Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I'm torn on Loki. So if you compare that to how I felt about the Phase 3 Marvel movies, it's like, man, that's a way different record. Like from
Phase 3 was like they knocked that for me. They knocked it out of the park. Phase 3 was like a no misses. Like I mean, the worst Marvel stuff they've had so far, in my opinion, is Thor: The Dark World, and that's the bottom. And that was Phase.
It still has Loki.
Was that?
And it still has Loki, and he's still
great. Yeah. There's good stuff in it. That was the first time they mentioned the Infinity Stones. I was like, I left that theater hyped. I was like, yeah, they said Infinity Stones. Woo! And then like I was just like, oh, but the movie's not that good.
It really wasn't.
Left on a high note though, which is good.
But I will point out, we've talked about this before. Thor: The Dark World would be in the top 3 of the DC cinematic universe as it exists right now.
Yeah, that's in a sad state. But
but
I mean, but it has fans, and I'm sure this episode will have more fans than us. I saw something earlier today on Twitter. I don't know why. Like I muted a lot of words on Twitter just for my own
sanity.
And like I still get some things. And one thing was like picture the Snyder cut with a greater than sign. And then the Avengers, the first Avengers movie. Like, in what world? I mean, I get you can have other opinions. Like, no. Maybe the Snyder Cut was better than Dark World, But people look at that and they're it's a masterpiece.
But it took 5 times as long to be better than Dark World if it was.
Oh my god, yeah. I don't know. Everybody's different. But there are some crazy opinions.
Yeah, everyone's entitled to an opinion, but no. I mean, the Snyder Cut was good. It was better.
Yeah, it was better.
Yeah,
that's what I can say.
It wasn't terrible. The way Justice League or Batman versus Superman, or in my opinion, Man of Steel was. I didn't like any of them. To be truthful,
me neither. Man of Steel for a long time. Man of Steel I liked the least, just because it was the starting point and it started it so wrong.
Yeah,
it so didn't get who Superman was.
And it's such a shame because Henry Cavill was such a great choice.
He's awesome.
No flies on him whatsoever. I feel the same way about Witcher, the TV series now, that like Henry Cavill was born for this, is so passionate about it. And the writers just keep fucking it up.
I don't know the stories or like that world enough, but I like the second season a lot. I liked it better than the first season. First season, I was like, what the fuck is going on?
I know this isn't the Witcher episode, but briefly, we watched Witcher season 1 and liked it okay. Like, even though the time hops were a little confusing, even for, people who are used to time travel stories. It's not a time travel story. It's just told out of sequence. But I was like, okay, well, that was pretty good. And then I played The Witcher 3 on PlayStation, and oh my good Lord, that I like video games, but it's one of those things that I just don't have a ton of time for, and I'm not all that good at. So it tends to be a pretty low priority. I played Witcher 3 obsessively until I beat the whole thing, bought all the expansions, beat those 2, and Michelle would get angry with me if I played it when she wasn't there. Because the story was that good in the game. It was such a brilliant, rich story.
That's cool.
And you get attached to the characters, including the side characters, and they just do them dirty in season 2. Compared more so than season 1, they do a lot of characters dirty in season 2 of The Witcher compared to their video game versions, or we eventually read the books too, or their book versions.
Yeah, I don't know any of that. So.
Yeah, and if you don't go in with that baggage, maybe it's much better. I can believe that, but I did. Like, I couldn't divorce it, you know.
Yeah.
I know it's unfair to hold an adaptation too closely to source material, and the video game isn't even technically the source material. The books are. Yeah. But in my opinion, when you have a version that's so much better, it's really hard to get behind.
You can't not compare it.
Yeah. So
favorably or not favorably, you can't not do it.
Yeah, a little bit of a tangent there, but yeah, I will say that's the only thing is I'm not writing off the series by any means. We'll see how they do next week, but it is bothering me that we're getting more and more of these small chinks in the armor, you know, of Marvel. They're popping up a little more frequently as they try to do more stuff, and I really hope. You know, I had so much fun with the Infinity Saga that I don't want the train to stop. You know, I'm like, hey, a lot more stuff in the Marvel canon that would make awesome, epic film cycles.
Yeah.
How about you don't fuck it up?
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the amount of like faith, goodwill that like Kevin Feige and all of them have like earned, and it's true. Like they've got like a number of mistakes before I'm like, oh, this sucks now.
And I'm not saying it does. I'm not saying it does. I'm just pessimistic enough. Sure. Not that I'm saying it will.
Well, you were pessimistic about Phase 4 from the tip. You know, when they announced all the movies that were coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, some of them at least, you know, weren't saying. I think I was most. I'm trying to fucking center myself. I was, I think, most nervous about Shang-Chi because, like, that's a character I don't care about in the comics at all. And I had a blast.
I'm going to be honest. I think 99% of the people who would claim they cared about Shang-Chi before the movie are virtue signaling.
Probably.
Like, no one cared about Shang-Chi. Like, no one cared about Shang-Chi. There's like one dude who the Shang-Chi comics were what spoke to him and got him into the hobby.
Yeah. That's a good, like, Marvel does do that with like a lot of characters because I couldn't care less about Falcon. I couldn't care less about the Vision or Hawkeye in the comics. I know there are people that love some of the Hawkeye runs. Yeah. The Matt Fraction one, people love that, and it was all right for me. Mm-hmm. But like Marvel does that, like they'll take a character that either I don't like or I don't like a lot, and they'll make them like really good.
I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy are a pillar of the MCU.
Yeah.
I didn't know shit about him before the movie. Like, I didn't know a thing about him.
Yeah, I did. Because, you know, I'm a bigger nerd than you.
I mean, Watson. Maybe a little bit.
But not for long. I didn't know them that much longer. When they and all that. But, like, I haven't seen that yet with Moon Knight. Like, I haven't, like, gotten to a point where I'm like, this Moon Knight is as good or better than what we get. Except for the fact that the personalities are differentiated a little more.
Yeah.
But I want to see more about that.
If I remember correctly, the Stephen Grant persona was like the Bruce Wayne persona.
Yep.
He was like a billionaire playboy persona, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was talking to my brother about this between last week and this week because he knows more about Moon Knight than I do. And apparently Moon Knight was never in the beginning. He didn't have like multiple personalities. He was just they were just his like identities, like, you know how Bruce Wayne has Matches Malone and like all that stuff. It was like that. It was just like different things. But then as the character continued, they started like showing, oh no, these are different personalities altogether. And
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So like it's cool development. But there was that, and what else was there? I'm liking, but like, so I'm waiting to see. I like this idea that there's such a differentiation because when you have like just Batman basically. Playboy, and then you have the mercenary superhero. It's not as interesting because we have that already. you
Yeah.
know, and
I was
other
all on
things
board
too.
for the dissociative personality disorder. That can't be the whole show. You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
it's got to have something more than that. And so far it doesn't. And also, I complimented them on their abeyance, their withholding of information in episode 1. It's now starting to become a problem
Yeah.
in episode 2. So
I do feel
yeah,
like next episode maybe we'll start to like pick things up again because now we're in Egypt, so
yeah.
now it's like a perfect time to show us, you know, show us his origin, you know, show us where he comes from, you
No,
know, and where these
I agree with that
personalities come from.
completely. I will say this is something you won't care about, and 90% of viewers won't care about, but um, I don't like his pistol. I know. Only the gun people care about that,
Yeah.
but he's got this blinged out Beretta. It's not a bad gun. Like the Beretta's an okay pistol. I carried one in the army. It's fine. Not great, but fine. But I feel like a professional would pick something either functional, like the ever-present Glock you see in every movie, and that the media thinks every semi-automatic pistol is a Glock, or if he was going to do a fancy high-end pistol, there are a lot better choices than a chromed out Beretta. Again, like I know, like
that is you.
That's me. I know that's me. It's like caring about John Walker's haircut. I get it. Most people do not care, but I do. And he's supposed to be a professional.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, so.
But for me, Mark did say "oi" in this episode, and I would not be surprised if that's the only connection to his Jewish heritage, and that's fine. When he said "oi," I was like, because of the thing. Good for you.
I feel like that's if I say brilliant and you assume I'm English or something.
Yeah.
I mean, but anyway, you're right. Like,
it was a good Easter egg. I don't know if we'll get more than that, but it was a good Easter egg.
I mean, you've got one badass Jewish Marine, former Marine Jewish person in comics. He could stand to be a little more outwardly Jewish. It could be good. That could be good. Yeah. No, it's yeah. No, like I said, I know no one cares about the guns, but it was just one of those things I was like, if he's who you've told me who he is, I don't think that's the gun he picked. Maybe he got it out of necessity. You know, that's what was available. That's perfectly fine. But just little details like that I appreciate if they get right.
Yeah.
By itself, I wouldn't care if I wasn't already thinking critically. Yeah. You know, like if you've got me, you know, and I'm entertained, I don't start thinking about it.
If you have time to think about and be concerned about the type of gun he has, that's a problem with this show.
Yeah.
You know? That's what I say with a lot of my movies.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if they notice that, if the audience notices something like that, something small, we got bigger problems.
Yeah. It's the Hitchcock fridge test, right? Like, at least in the theater, like Alfred Hitchcock said, like, my minimum standard is in the theater, you don't worry about it. You know, you go with me through the whole story. Now, if you're at home later that night, you go to the fridge for a snack and you stop and think, hey, wait, that's not my problem anymore. Like,
there you go.
Which I don't entirely agree with that. Because I do think there are things you can realize after your first watch that do detract from your second or third watch, which Alfred Hitchcock was extremely popular in the day when most movies were consumed on the big screen. The home video wasn't so much a thing, I think, if I've got my timelines right there. But for us, we get to consume the movies we like over and over again. So really, you do want your fiction to stand up to rewatch or reread. And I don't know. We'll see. Like, maybe in conjunction with the rest of the series, I would want to see this episode again. But right now, I can't see voluntarily sitting down for it again. Now that
I rewatched the first episode. I forget what, sometime between last week and this week.
Yeah,
I don't think I would rewatch this one unless you know, I feel like I have to. Same thing with that Loki episode. You know.
Yeah, on a rewatch of the series, I skipped that episode.
Sure. Yeah.
Which doesn't mean it's a bad series. Ultimately, it may be this may still be a great series. This episode was a little bit of a letdown given the promising start. Yeah. Okay, I got to give it one compliment. I did like the sequence with Khonshu in the storage containers that he was in. Like, I thought that was pretty cool. Like, I was like, oh, this is neat. You know, I like this.
I think all the Khonshu stuff was good. And if we're talking about like special effects look really good for Khonshu.
Yeah, he's creepy.
You know, maybe they blew all their budget on Moon Knight's costumes and his costume changes, and they didn't have any money for the jackals. Yeah, maybe that was it.
I feel like the budget is mostly in Ethan Hawke and Oscar Isaac's pocket. I'm just guessing.
Yeah,
based on how everything else is going.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably not wrong, man.
I don't think it went to the screenwriting. That's not fair. The first episode is pretty good. The second one needed some more workshopping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, not great. Hoping they do better next week. I would say.
I got faith.
Yeah. I'm on the fence. I hope they will. I'm rooting for them. I'm not mad at the show and wanting them to fail, because I can get to that point.
Yeah,
you know, people can piss me off enough that I'm like, screw you and your show.
Yeah, I used to get like that a little more, especially like with like the Snyder movies. I was like, these movies should fail so that they can like start over fresh and good. And now I just don't care. I just don't care. I would love to get some good Superman movies, but you know.
Well, I feel that, like, not, again, we're tangential here, but I feel that way about Star Wars a lot, that I'm like, anything that Filoni and Favreau aren't controlling, I'm like, yeah, no, that needs to burn. You know, any movie that comes out that's not, you know, realigned to actually be fan pleasing, you know, and not in a cheap way, you know, in an actual good story way. I'm like, no, we don't want that vision.
You can make fans happy without, like, you know, overdoing it. Making fans happy should not be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Well, and there's people, you should want your fans to be happy.
Yeah. Well, I feel like writers have lost, like, screenwriters have lost the thread between what constitutes crowd pleasing and what constitutes pandering.
Sure.
Because pandering's bad.
Yep.
When you just do the please love me and it makes no sense in the story, you know, then that's bad. But when you write a good solid story that also includes the beats that fans are really there for, like Luke Skywalker crushing an army of battle droids or dark troopers, story still worked. Like, you know, still a pretty good story. We were all very happy. We're not that we and that's the thing that always kills me when people are like, oh, nothing would have pleased you. I'm like, actually, you know, I'm going to point out that The Mandalorian is only good. You know, like, I'm sorry, like, but like, its writing is not so exquisite that it's like the best thing I've ever said, but it is solid and it is competent and I love it. You know, like, I freaking love that show. With my critical brain, I'm like, oh, there's things I think maybe could have been better, and they could have had tighter story here. And I don't like the episode with the frog eggs on the ice planet with the spiders. That was a waste.
Another like Loki type episode.
Yeah. So like I can definitely criticize things, but overall it was competent and it was very clearly made with good intentions and with warm feelings towards the fans.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not actually hard to please. You just have to do a decent job and not intentionally piss on the IP.
Yeah.
Like,
it seems so easy.
You would think, especially when you have the resources of a country like Disney does.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think we've dissected the episode pretty good. Any last thoughts on that one before?
No. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
Hoping for like a not a fresh start, but like, you know, let's get this thing going. You got 4 episodes left. Let's get it going. Yeah.
I want to see. Okay, I have one more gripe. The reason I want Mark in charge now is I could use a dynamic hero now. You know, like, I've seen Stephen bumbling for 2 episodes. I really want to see Mark Spector move the ball. You know, to use a sports ball metaphor.
And if you need to do more Stephen, that's fine. But try to even it out more. Yeah. First episode being just Stephen, fine. This episode being mostly Stephen, no. Yeah. No, we're past that point. We're past that point. Make it like half and half. Make it a little bit more Mark, but like, let's get more, because we already have a whole episode of Stephen.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, I agree with you. We'll see what happens next week. I guess we'll call it at that. So thanks for watching, fellas. Again, there'll be links to mine and Sam's work in the liner below. Move on in the description below. And if you have not watched it yet, I really recommend Yellow Scare and check out all of Narrow Bridge Films' other offerings as they get ready for their festival run. And hope to see you next time. Until then, keep up the fire. Oh, hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, please. And leave us a comment with your thought. All right, I'm new to this. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.